Thank you, Anne, and it's great to be here and obviously to be the first person presenting this morning. I'm going to take you through, that tells you who I am, Sally Shadrack, London Borough of Newham, and I'm down as the case study on free school meals. I'm going to take you through our Newham challenge to when we prepared to deliver our universal free school meal pilot. And for that, I need to take you back in time really, because basically I need to go all the way back to 2009 and tell you what I was doing at that point in time. I was working in a particular school, and we were doing an in-depth survey, looking at our quality of meals and trying to encourage children to eat vegetables and take salad. And one particular head teacher said to me, Sally, well, can you actually have a look at my packed lunches for me? And I had a look at the packed lunches, and I was absolutely astounded, because I'd been spending all my time trying to encourage those that were having school meals to have a healthy school meal and enjoy their school meal. And when I had a look at the standard of packed lunches, I was astonished. Basically, I couldn't find, I looked at probably about 11 or 12 children's lunches. I couldn't find any protein. Well, I did actually. I found yesterday's cheeseburger that one child had. And then, anyone who had a sandwich, it was chocolate spread. There was no, protein there. And I observed this child that had a flask, and I was feeling, oh gosh, this is going to be somebody that has got what I would consider, or what most people would consider, a healthy meal. And there was a chunk of bread, nothing on it. And I asked this little girl what she had in her flask, and she had water. So on one hand, we had the dining room when we were encouraging children to eat healthily and have a good quality meal. And on the other hand, we had this inequality. And I think things happen for a reason. And at this point in time, about a week later, in my inbox popped this email saying, please fill in this form. And this form was the proposal to put a bid in to have free school meals. So I looked through the criteria in the form, and being in Newham, things took a while to reach me, and I had probably about a week to send that form back in. And I worked with our colleagues in the Primary Care Trust, and they helped me with the statistics, and back the form went, and we were astonished and pleasantly surprised that we were successful. So that was wonderful. Alongside Durham in 2009, we put the application form in March, and I think we'd just come back from Easter holidays, and got the call to say that we were successful, and that we had to implement free school meals from that summer. So at the start of September, we had to be ready to deliver universal free school meals for all our primary age children. And I suppose it was at that point it started to dawn on me. So this was the ideal situation, children sitting happily in a pleasant dining environment with a good quality meal in front of them. So what happened when we found out? Well, when we were successful, and being in London, we had the minister down, so I think you can see a rather younger Ed Balls on the screen there, and he's sitting with Sir Robin Wales, our mayor, and we had a launch. And at that point in time, I suddenly went behind the scenes, and I thought I'd better have a word with the cook and see what are the implications for her. And I looked around the kitchen, and we'd obviously chosen somewhere that had a decent kitchen and dining room environment. I mean, it's not that you want to roll the red carpet out, but when you've got a launch, you go into somewhere where you can present your a good quality meal experience. So I talked to Kitty, our cook, and she said, don't worry, Sally, I'll manage. I've got 4 pieces of equipment. That will do probably 400. I'm doing 220 now. Don't worry. I'm sure I'll be able to do that. It'll just be like Christmas dinner day, all over again. As long as you give me the meal trays or the plates and the bowls and the cutlery, we can do it. So that, in a sense, that just one-off conversation did give us the impetus to know that we could deliver, that we had the staff that were going to do the job. And at the same time, we had governing bodies were present, head teacher and parents were there at the launch, and everybody was really positive. So there was a really good feeling, and this was obviously once we'd found out we'd won the pilot. So that was great. So what then did it mean? Well, in order to tell you what it meant for us, I just need to give you a little bit of background about Newham. Newham Catering and Cleaning Services were our in-house provider, and we catered for 66 primary and special schools in Newham, and out of those there were 2 that had outside caterers. We had Caterlink, our contract caterers, and we were lucky. We had 58 schools with a full production kitchen. But when I say a full production kitchen, we may have had old ranges in there, we had maybe some steamers. We didn't have things like combination ovens or dishwashers. We just didn't have that type of investment. I mean, we had pretty decent sized kitchens in a lot of cases. You know, you had the space, but it was antiquated equipment. We also had 6 schools that had regeneration facilities. When I joined Newham previously, probably 6 years prior to 2009, we had some dining centres that had had regeneration trolleys put in them, and obviously fridge and freezer capacity and servery equipment and some washing up, but not a lot else. So we did have schools where we knew that we were going to have pressure points. So what were our management team, our structure like within Newham Catering Services? Well, we had a dedicated management team, and there were 2 area managers for 20 sites. So that was pretty good. We had a good team of responsive managers who were able to be out and about and supporting the cooks and kitchen assistants, and obviously dealing with any queries from the school directly. And I was on the client team, and I had very much developed a strategic role for the service, and I was quite passionate of ensuring that the quality of the meal and the presentation of the food was good in Newham. So we'd invested quite a lot in dining furniture and front of house servery provision, so that, you know, children could see the meal, because a large number of our kitchens, even though they were quite large, had small servery areas where we couldn't necessarily display the full quantity of meals. So we'd worked and invested in some food service equipment. We also work closely with our local authority asset management team in part of capital strategy, and they were responsible for maintaining our kitchen premises, so things like dealing with any tiles, issues around, you know, the premises themselves. However, we had used some of their funds from schools directly to also support where we had very poor facilities. So we were making plans and investing in our kitchens prior to 2009. What were our population? Well, we had a deprived population in Newham, certainly, and we had high obesity levels, and that was something that enabled us to be put forward for the bid. And out of those, we're very diverse in Newham. We're very multicultural. In fact, we're probably more diverse than New York. And out of that, we had a large number of children from the Indian subcontinent. So about 50% of our schools had halal meat. We had a standardised menu cycle, and that was able to be tailor-made to individual school requirements. So that was very helpful in the sense that schools could elect to choose what they liked and what they disliked on the menu. For example, if a school really didn't like rice pudding, then they could make a choice and change the menu. And like yourselves, probably within local authorities, healthy schools had come into fruition, and we had an excellent healthy school coordinator who also raised our profile in schools. So we felt we were in a pretty good place to be. But obviously there was a lot of work to be done. So what were our numbers like? Well, before in the pilot, I suppose we had as I say, we're a small part of East London, and we had a population of about just over 30,000 children. And before 2009, our take-up levels were slightly higher than I think the average. We were about 49%. And out of those, we had 30% that were free school meal eligible. So even though we were deprived, there were particular pockets south of the borough that had more children that were free school meal eligible. And really the take-up level of those children, the take-up of free school meals, we weren't able to capture everyone. So that was a really good thing about universal free school meals. We might be finding and be able to change over those children who were free school meal entitled but still elected and still maybe cajoled mum or dad to produce a packed lunch. So those were the children that I was really interested, those 15% that weren't having a meal even though they were actually entitled. So they interested me. So what did we forecast in our meal numbers? Well, we forecast about 76%. We didn't forecast the 87% at the time, and we only had Hull to go on. And you know, we were, I suppose, the way we were quite reserved about what we would come out with. And like yourselves, we contacted head teachers, and they actually said to us, we think we're going to get 76% of the population. And they were very positive about what was to happen. But obviously they were also keen to know what support was going to be given from caterers. So this next stage is, I'm sure that you've been through, and realistically, just to run over this is St Michael's Primary School, and it still exists now. So it's a regeneration site in the sense that we haven't got full cooking facilities here. It still has a regeneration oven, of which we're upgrading to combination ovens this summer. And it has unfortunately not been able to cook all the main meals. So what I'm trying to say is, really, with the pilot, it was wonderful when it happened, but we didn't necessarily get all that capital investment, and I'm sure that's something that you're aware of from your own experience. It wasn't something that, number one, you could put in within a short time scale, or that you weren't wanting to continue to plan in the future. So things like gastronome trays, we needed more of those. Obviously we kept mainly our meal trays because we felt with the higher uptake levels, and a lot of schools in Newham have big populations and they've continued to rise. We have a large number of full form entry schools. That takes you up to nearly the 800 mark if you're serving 87%, which we are currently. So it is quite a challenge to serve those additional numbers. On the way of heavy equipment, we needed to put in more refrigeration. Combination ovens and dishwashers have obviously featured as time's gone on. We have been able to invest with our primary capital programme because we've had increased in numbers. That's also brought more money into the local authority. Did we have to consider food storage? Well, we did. Obviously, it was also weighed up with delivery frequency, and that was the role that Newham Catering Services took on, and certainly ensured that the food was there from day one, and there weren't any issues about how to store food. So we did look at our long and short-term solutions, and we found that we would have 3 sites in particular with limited facilities, so we had to actually ship in food. So we weren't cooking everywhere on site from fresh hot meals, but certainly we managed hot meals in all our cases. So what did we do in the dining room? Well, when our numbers went up past 400, we thought that it would be useful to have additional servery counters because the throughput was crucial. We didn't want children queuing for too long, so it was a case of setting up a mirror image. It was the only thing we needed in reality was things like VersiCart trolleys and also a power supply. As long as we had a plug socket, we could cope. And then it was a case of working with the school to ensure the queuing arrangements were good and robust and that everyone knew what they were doing. And in Newham now, we have a third of our schools that have got additional serving counters, and actually we've got 10 schools that have 3 or more counters, and those are the ones that are serving 800 meals. And that works well. With dining, in reality, we thought that if the children are coming in and having a packed lunch in the dining hall, then it's okay, we've got enough dining furniture. But in reality, that wasn't the case, because we did find out there were certain pockets that we may not have explored where some children were eating packed lunches in a little annex area. And then we had some children that I wasn't aware of that actually went home for lunch. So they had to be considered. So we did have to increase our amount of dining furniture, and we worked on obviously the length of the lunch and the number of seating. So what we worked on was every 20 minutes we could have a turnover in the dining room. So if you had an hour and a quarter, obviously I'm saying an hour and a quarter because generally our reception in most of our schools comes in at 11:45, and then obviously they like to finish the lunch by 1 o'clock. That would give you, and if you were needing to serve 300 children during that time, then ideally you would need 100 seats. So a turnover of every 20 minutes is what we worked on, and that has seemed to work out. Certainly a large number of our schools have also elected to increase the lunch hour, and we have some that have a 2-hour lunch. I mean, that's obviously not the children, but it is the catering service, so it may be Key Stage 1 have the first hour, and then Key Stage 2 have the second hour. And schools have found the benefits there. They've also found it helps in the playground, to manage the playground duties as well. So looking further, one thing that we did to ensure that everyone was on board was during the summer term we did have lots of parent tasting sessions, and parents were really impressed with what we had to offer. They couldn't believe the range of dishes and the choice. I mean, my son, for example, used to come home and say to me, I used to ask him, because parents always ask what their children have eaten. And, my son used to say to me he had sausages every day. And I knew he didn't have sausages every day, but, that's what I was being told. He just wanted mum to get off his back and, get on with whatever he wanted to get on with. And certainly this really worked, certainly ensuring that your local population know what's on offer. And it wasn't a case of rolling out the red carpet. We had the display of food, we had the salad bar, we showed the clearing trolley, so parents could actually experience what their child was experiencing at lunchtime. Another thing that worked well in Newham, and I don't know why we did it in the first place really, but years ago we used to put up a menu board, and we had a trigger, and he was a lion, and he was friendly, but obviously the writing that we put down which displayed the menu didn't necessarily mean anything to a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old that's just coming into school in the UK. So this was key, and this works really well, because not only does it show the child what's on offer, they can see the portion size, and yes, they can see that their carrots may be separate from whatever else they want to eat. So if carrots actually end up on their plate, they know they're going to be put perhaps there. So we ask that Newham Catering Services, because of the higher uptake in meals, can then provide a display portion of food as the child comes up to the counter, so they can see what's on offer. And in our schools we have an option of a meat, fish and vegetarian choice daily, and obviously there's sandwiches on offer, but not for all the population. That's another offering there, so that shows there. Another key role were obviously the forgotten part of the school meal service in some cases, and those are people that aren't necessarily employed by us, being the midday staff within schools, and these are people that come in and may only work an hour and a half. So we felt that we needed to support them to ensure that children were actually encouraged and would actually enjoy the school meals on offer. So we worked hard and put together a midday meal supervising training package, and probably about half our primary schools have taken this up and have found it's really paid off, in the sense that midday staff really understand their role, and it makes them feel more important and valued, and in turn it develops good relations within the kitchen, because there are some environments where it's a bit of an us and them situation. Sometimes the midday staff feel they can't say something to the cook, and likewise the catering team may feel that they've got some issues within the dining hall, and it's never the twain may meet. And it's only if schools actually support that you can get those relationships developed. So that was a consequence of running our midday meal supervisor courses and involving the catering staff, that we found that there were better quality relations within schools. I've just displayed a salad bar there. Again, parents were sort of gobsmacked. Gosh, you have a thing like a salad bar. They didn't really understand the concept. So they were able to see that their children were able to come in and actually help themselves to salad. Were there key challenges? Well, yes, there were, but we overcame them. And the wonderful news was, really, when we started in day one, we didn't actually have any complaints. We had one school that was going up to a full form entry, and this was our particular challenge. We weren't going to have a kitchen at that point in time, so we had to ship in meals from elsewhere. Our head teacher said that she didn't really want to have hot meals, it was too much of a bother, and we took our lead, and if she was happy with a packed lunch, that's what we were going to do. So we started off there shipping in packed lunches. They were good quality meal offering, and it had a drink, and we upped the ante on the choices. However, this was the only area where we had any complaints or concerns. By the second week, parents were knocking at the head teacher's door saying, look, where's our hot meal? We're entitled to free school meals. It's down as a hot meal provision. Please can we have hot meals? And so we had to then scale up and ship in 800 meals. And obviously days when you've got things like mashed potato and things like that, that's going to be very heavy, delivering in nearly 800 meal numbers of mashed potato and everything else. So we did tailor the menu to be more friendly, in the sense it was transported meals, things like pasta was okay. I think curries and things in a sauce worked really well. So we did a lot of those type of products, but we worked closely with the school, and certainly parents were really grateful that we were able to ship in a hot main meal service. So I would say that realistically it was a challenge, but it was a challenge that we overcame, and we've got a photograph there of Nelson's School Kitchen, which is one of our newest and has a double servery counter, and it's very up to date, and probably did cost a lot of money. Going on from there, another challenge was statistics. We had to keep a lot of figure work, and so that's pretty crucial to ensure that you have your numbers, and this is where you still need to keep your free school meal entitled numbers. So we've got weekly statistics. This was a sheet that was emailed, that schools email to us on a weekly basis, and from there that collates all the meal numbers. Some of that data at the top there, the pupil on roll, comes from SIMS packages within the school, and it automatically populates the top section of the data and the eligibility on free school meals and how many children are actually absent, and then schools actually have to fill in the daily meal numbers. Obviously that form would be slightly different now because it's got to encompass things like Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2, because again you need to look and keep more specific data. And that was really pretty crucial, certainly that we could feed back to the government pilot that we had that data, and then we could see how many of those that were free school meal entitled were actually taking meals. Was it an increase on the 85%? And thank goodness it was. You know, we've hit the 90% in that respect. So that was marvellous. So hardly any packed lunches out there. And really the most important thing, and what I want to leave you with, is really the most important thing is the food on the plate. And have we raised our game to ensure that good quality meals are out there? And it is a challenge, especially for our staff that work so hard within school kitchens.